Uh, Board of Education work session to order, please. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Groff,
Here.
Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Skirl,
Here.
Mr. Belfron.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And can I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Skirl,
Yes.
Mr. Belfron.
Yes. Just to confirm, there are no reports or presentations. So next on the agenda, discussion items for the treasurer, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. For discussion items 1 and 2, it's just the standard minutes. I asked the board to review those and send any comment prior to my asking for approval at the regular meeting next week. Number 3, we have the regular financial items. There really hasn't been much change at all since last meeting. If you remember last meeting, I pointed out some of the biggest changes from the forecast. Nothing too big. Salaries a little bit more than we had forecasted because the board approved a 1.5% base salary increase. Forecast was 1%, so that caused a variance. Then on the positive side, our insurance renewal came in lower than expected, so that does a nice job of offsetting that additional payroll cost. If you will look, you'll see that year to date, there's about a $2 million variance to where we were at last year. Simply timing. We received money from the county auditor sooner this year than last, but we're still on track to be right where the forecast expected as far as our property tax receipts. So I ask that the board review and ask me any questions either prior to or at the next meeting or now if you'd like. Number 4, 2023 permanent appropriation and amended certificate of estimated resources. These are basically compliance items. We have to file with the county auditor what we expect to have in money to spend, and then estimates by fund of what we will spend or what we think we're going to spend. General fund is based on the forecast with slight modifications for changes such as the higher payroll and the lower health insurance. I did want to make note as far as the appropriations, which are the budgets. A couple of notes about the budgets and the budgeting process this year. So the buildings, we freeze their budgets to what they were in the prior year. You've all seen inflation, and so it's technically a decrease when you factor in the higher cost of everything. So we thought that freezing for this year was fair because it's technically a slight decrease, and we're in a current financial state to where we can't spend too much. And then for district-wide budgets, we implement zero-based budgeting where I sit down with the department heads. They go through line by line what they're requesting and why. I know we've gotten some questions and some comments in the past about that. And I just wanted to point out to the board that we don't just tell teaching and learning, for example, here's $15 million. We sit down line by line. What are you spending the money on and why do you need it? So I just wanted to point out those couple of things. I thought it was an appropriate time since the board's approving our estimated budgets. And then for other funds, athletics, lunchroom, grants, those are based on either what the federal government and the state of Ohio has told us that we're going to receive for a grant. And then prior year and past experience, we expect athletics, for example, to be pretty similar to the prior years unless he's notified or we've discussed a major change somewhere. And then number 5, the public records log. There's a link to the website. You can see there's a couple outstanding. We've done a pretty good job of staying up to date. This is an extremely busy time of year for us with school kicking off, new payroll, new insurance, all that goes into when you onboard new employees. But we have been able to spend some time to try to keep up with these public records requests and also answer questions from the public. I don't get one every day, but it's typically one every other day to every day that I try to get back to that person the day that I get it. So to get their questions answered in a timely manner.
And green is that you fulfilled, you've sent it. The yellow is that you're still in process.
Correct.
And what about the white?
The white means haven't sent anything yet. I may be working on it in the background, but I haven't reached back out to that person with anything. I mark it yellow when I either respond and ask a question about the request and I'm waiting to hear back, or I've actually sent part of the request and I'm working on the rest of it. And yes, green is that it was fulfilled.
I have a question. Do you make the description?
I do.
Okay, could we be a little more specific on this?
Absolutely.
Because emails to staff or parents, I just am curious, like, what emails to staff or parents are people asking for?
Okay, that one.
Or purchase orders, like which purchase orders?
Okay, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that. I'm the one that puts it on there. So yeah, we can do that.
Okay,
To answer those 2 questions, it's all emails that went to either all staff in the building district-wide or any email that or communication that went to all parents. So
all staff, like, how long does that take you to?
it's a pretty time-consuming process. And honestly, the building principals, Dawn helped me out with that. It's something that they have more readily at their fingers. So it's a team effort to get some of these done.
Okay, thank you. I would just ask our community, to please be aware of our employees' time, because that's a lot of information that I don't understand, but maybe that's just me.
No, it's not just you.
I mean, I want you guys working on educating our kids. I don't want you fulfilling thousands of email requests.
I would agree. Like that, not to call out the specific one, but is that for this school year? Is this still 21,
was-
23,
that was-
22, 23 school year?
That was going back 3 months.
3 months?
And that purchase order one, it's also about the same time frame. Good thing about something like a purchase order, I can pull a report out of the system,
Sure.
whereas some of them, it takes a little bit more going through and finding and sifting through and pulling out. So some of them may seem daunting, but it's a button on a report to get it out and send it. And then some take a lot of going through and catching and making sure there's not any information that we're not allowed to send out to the public. For example, if it's about kids who aren't their kids and don't meet certain definitions, then I have to redact it. So some of them, yeah, they take some time, but as I said, we try to get to them timely, and I think we do a pretty good job, even with how busy things have been of getting that.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Next on our, I'm sorry, sir, are you finished? Mr.
Yes, I
Morrow?
am. Yes, thank you.
Next on the agenda are the discussion items for Mr. Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Belfram. 2 items tonight. The first one is we'll be asking for approval next week for, it says the varsity gold, that should say golf. So we will rectify that by next week. There's a varsity golf trip request for September 23rd and 24th to for Tiffin, Ohio, Defiance, actually, for a tournament they want to participate in. So we'll ask the board for approval for that next week. And I have a few quick updates that I want to just highlight. And I just left it as a superintendent updates, just to brief the board and the community on a few things that have been happening and going on. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate King's Board of Education member Peggy Phillips for the recipient of the 2022 Ohio School Boards Association Aptitude Award. This OSBA Aptitude Award is a distinct award and is part of OSBA's STAR Awards program. STAR stands for Service Training, Aptitude, and Recognition. It goes to a very select group of board members. There's more than 3,400 board members in Ohio, and only 38 will receive this honor in 2022. It requires a board member to demonstrate an understanding and comprehension of a variety of board governance skills based on 6 leadership areas: vision, accountability, policy, community engagement, relationships, and advocacy. Mrs. Phillips will be officially recognized at the OSBA Southwest Fall Regional Conference on Thursday, October 13th at the Greene County Career Center in Xenia. So, Ms. Phillips, we appreciate all of your efforts and continued growth and leadership within our school district. We're fortunate for all that you do. So congratulations.
Mention this next week publicly in front of.
We'll repeat this. Absolutely. The second thing I wanted to talk through very briefly, and just to provide the board, on our website, we update this very frequently, that our enrollment numbers. And so our enrollment numbers to date, as of today, we have 4,704 students in our district. This is located on the district website under the resource section. And if you click on About Kings, there will be a button that says enrollment numbers, and you can see some of that where we are. So you can see where, as of 9/13/22, we have 4,704. We've seen this stabilize a little bit as we anticipated from August, early August to now. We anticipated some withdrawals as the summer transiency happens. Now that we're after Labor Day, that most school districts are in, we have not received any records requests recently. So we're pretty well up to date on what those numbers are. One thing to point out, and Mr. Spinner points this out quite frequently. You want to point that out?
Sure. If you look at those numbers, it appears as though kindergarten has eclipsed our freshman class by 1 student. This is really straining my eyesight, but kindergarten's up to 389. I think our freshmen are at 388, and our leading class is still that 4th grade class at 416. The 3 smallest classes in the group, in order, are our seniors, juniors, and sophomores. So those 3 classes that are about to vacate our district are the smallest ones, and we've got the larger ones coming in behind. So showing some growth in our younger grade levels.
Correct. And I think it's a point out, you can do the math on this. I'm going to generalize this, but of our K-6 enrollment numbers are approximately 2,600 students. And our 7 through 12 are approximately 2,100. So there is a variance of about 500 students from our K-6 class to our group of students to our 7 to 12. And so you can see some of that there, but we have been briefing the board weekly, but I wanted to just point that out as we feel like those are a little more stabilized. This is a moving target throughout the year as kids come and go. So that'll continue to fluctuate, but we will stay more than likely around that number this year. So with that, I wanted to just extend that conversation on enrollment to a specific subgroup that we have seen some growth within this year. So currently, when we're talking about our students that we consider English as a second language. So this is a point of note to the board as we continue to analyze the best way to service our students. And I know Mr. Freeman and our team, Mrs. Martin, and our team of folks are even meeting on Thursday to continue this discussion. But we've seen an increase over the last few years on the number of students that are entering into King's with limited English proficiency. So right now, and this is a low number because we are not factoring in the kindergarten students at KME as we're still assessing them. We have 280 students that we are servicing and are identifying in our district that are considered English as a second language, 280. For comparison, we were at 231 last year. And in 2015, 2016, we had a 116. So we've seen a significant growth in the number of students that are coming to us with English as a second language. Over that time, currently we have 5 teachers that predominantly teach our ESL students, and that's their primary responsibility with 2 tutors. We're sharing among buildings. We've seen a lot. JF Burns has the most of our students that are English as a second language. So we're going to continue to work with this. I just want to point this out to the board because oftentimes there's subgroups that get to be pressure points in our district. And this is going to start to be, we are going to consider this a pressure point coming up because we have a number of students that entered into King's this year that are currently not speaking English to the level that they will get them to. So that creates challenges for our teachers in the classroom because we want to support all of our students with that. So we'll work with our staff. I know Mr. Freeman and Ms. Martin are going to begin. They've had some of these discussions. We're analyzing the data. I just wanted to report out to the board because I've been asking what's our trend over time. We're starting to see that, and there's a significant growth as far as that goes. So I'll lob this to Mr. Freeman and Mrs. Martin. Is there anything you'd like to add to anything I just said?
There we go. I guess the only thing that I'll add is as part of our conversation on Thursday, we've got kind of several different things that we need to discuss. We do have an influx and higher numbers of students that are newcomers to the country than we've had in years past. So a fair number of students that don't have any English at all when they come in. So we're just seeing higher numbers there. So that's a point of discussion. Communication then, of course, with those families and those students on the part of the teachers. So how do we have conversation with those students about things we're doing instructionally? So instructional conversations, then just global communication, things that come from the buildings or from Don's office about happenings around the district. Yes, forums and things like that. So those are just some of the items that we're going to discuss on Thursday. I think that kind of hits all of the topics, but the teachers are going to be there to kind of help us to identify additional pain points that they're seeing, in the classroom. So we're trying to actively support these students and families, as well as our all of our teachers in the classroom. So we'll keep you updated.
At a future time, once you kind of sift through all of that, Mr. Sears, could we have a report for the board, just kind of a 101 to let us know what types of service, because when I hear teacher, tutors, we could all be thinking something different. So it might be helpful to get us all on a similar page.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
What's the current number again?
So this is a low number because it's not factoring into kindergarten enrollment at KME. So it's a low number. So 280 current students.
Okay.
So for comparison, there were 25 kindergarten students last year at KME. So we're anticipating that number to be similar or more, where they're still sifting through that.
Okay.
When do you expect to have that analysis completed?
By Thursday.
Yeah.
So before that, okay.
Mhm.
And then do you have it broken out by grade or not necessarily, or by school?
We do have that data available. It's not something specific in the chart that I have right in front of me, but
The only other thing I'll say is we're not talking about preschool either, because preschool is not mandated, but we do have ESL students in preschool, right? So we don't require teachers there. We don't do anything that we have to do K-12. And if you think about it, 3-year-olds are all learning the alphabet. 3-year-olds are all learning language, right? So that's how we do it downstairs. Every once in a while, we will bring in an ESL expert if we're evaluating the student for a learning disability also. So we do have some services down there, but most of it we treat just as like all 3 and 4-year-olds are learning, but still takes into effect their parents and the communication piece. And the form piece, whatever we do for the district, we'll have to do there too.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Morton. That was going to be my second question. Is there a way for us on that enrollment, just as an asterisk, a caveat, to have how many kids we have in preschool? I know we don't have to report. I don't think we have to report preschool, right, as part of our enrollment data, but we've got what, 200 kids down there too.
Mhm.
So we're
Yes.
really closer to 5,000 as opposed to 4,700.
That's correct.
And maybe there's an asterisk down there that we're just reporting this for purposes of to that fact, right? This is how many kids are actually here.
Using space.
Yes, using space that we account for, to Mrs. Martin's point, that we educate.
Happy, yes, we'll add that.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Next on the agenda are discussion items for the Assistant Superintendent with regards to matters of concerning HR and business. Mr. Spinner.
Thank you, President Belfram, King's Board of Education. 2 items up under my agenda here. 1 that I will focus on is personnel items, and then 2 I'm going to lob to the gentleman to my right, Mr. Lucky. Personnel items this evening, staff resignations and retirements. Would like to congratulate Margaret Griffin, speech and language pathologist at King's Junior High School. She is in her 23rd year here in the King's local school district, and she'll finish out that year. Most of that time has been working at the junior high and high school. I had the pleasure of working with Marg when I was at the junior high. She's a wonderful asset to our district and will be missed. We also have new staff members, staff miscellaneous items, supplementals and stipends. You'll see a fair number of stipends under there for Camp Campbell Guard, traditional trip our Columbia Intermediate School 6th graders will take. I know a lot of them are very excited for the team building opportunities they'll see later this month. And then temporary employment. Happy to answer any questions around personnel that you may have.
I have a question. I've not seen it before in the top section, job abandonment.
Yeah, there are times when we hire employees, we extend offers to employees, and they may arrive 1 or 2 work days and then disappear. And we try to reach out and try to connect with them to find out what's going on, receive a resignation, and just fail to be able to communicate. So we do want to make sure that we're clear and transparent on our board agendas as to what days they did work so that they can be compensated for those days, but then also show an end date. We try, like I said, to get a resignation when we can, but there are rare times when that does not occur.
Thank you.
Sure.
And if you could, Mr. Spinner, could you just briefly explain the retroactive pay, what that entails?
There are 2 items, I believe, on here under staff miscellaneous items. We had 2 employees at different times throughout the year hired as paraprofessionals, and they were slotted into a different spot within the school building, in this case, media aid. And there's a different salary schedule for that. And so when we were made aware of that situation, we compensate accordingly and made an adjustment retroactively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Typically, we try to catch those things as they occur, but if someone gets moved roles in a building and then the information doesn't come to us, we don't know to pay them. And since
Right.
this is dating back a year ago, that's why you see it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Mr. Lucky.
Mr. Spinner. So attached there, you'll see our yearly list of in lieu of applications for the year, just to bring everybody up to speed if you haven't heard of the in lieu of transportation. So this allows us to pay community families. The amount has increased. It started last year to $538.55 for us to transport students that we consider impractical for transportation. So we have 33 applicants so far this year. On occasion, you'll see these trickle in on our board docs. Somebody turns one in late, or someone moves into the district and goes to a school that we have deemed impractical, and we can prorate that amount based on the year. Typically, we do a quarterly proration. We try to be as fair as we can for these folks. So that 33 applicants that you see there comes at a cost of $17,772.15, which is a far cry from $65,000 for a bus route. So we are servicing roughly 10 schools with this in lieu of that allows us, one, to free up drivers that we desperately need, as well as buses and time. So the in lieu of is a hopefully a good thing for these families to be able to be compensated to transport their kids to school, as well as for us to free up a bus and a driver. Because these 10 schools would probably eat up about 4 buses, because time is what's against you. You have to get kids to a certain place at a certain time. You don't have a whole lot of time to scoot around to get around it. So the 17,000 is probably saving us about $240,000. It's a good swap. That leads me into kind of a little bus update, just to keep people up to date. It's not getting any easier. As far as finding drivers, we've increased our pay to $25 an hour. We've increased our guarantee to 5 hours a day. JF Burns felt one yesterday and today, as we were short of drivers, so we had to combine routes. So we were able to combine probably 2/3 of the bus on other routes, and then a bus had to finish its route, go back, pick up those kids at about 3:55 today. Bus came back, picked up those kids, got them home. We did an all call to communicate that to all the families of the adjustment that was made. But this is, I hate to set this as an expectation, and it's awful, but this is going to happen as we get through the year. And we're doing everything we can to avoid the situation of combining routes and adjusting kids, because it's not a good effect on anyone. No one wants to worry about, am I getting a call today? Is my child going to be home at the time that I think they're going to be home? Am I going to meet the bus at the right time? So we're doing everything we can to avoid combining routes and doing this, but we are able to provide the service. So it is an inconvenience, but we're trying to do everything we can to avoid making the phone call of bus 35. You need to figure out how to pick your kid up at 3:20 today. That's what we're trying to avoid. So we're trying to provide as much service as we can, as well as we can. So I'll keep you guys up to date as we continue trying to recruit drivers. I'll say it here in radio land. If you are a driver, know a driver, we are in desperate need of drivers. We've got plenty of buses. We don't have plenty of drivers right now. And it's not a Kings centric issue. This is all over. There's districts that have closed school because they don't have enough drivers. There's districts that do a rotation of 20 routes a day that they can't service, and they're making that call. So it doesn't make it feel any better here. You know, when we're inconveniencing our families, it's the last thing we want to do, but it's everywhere right now. So we're doing what we can to recruit. It's just a tough little segment of employees right now to find.
Has that affected any of this sporting events, getting kids to sports?
Absolutely. Great question. In the fall, your tough ones become golf, because you have to get to the course. They have to be off the course before the leagues start, which is the moneymaker for the course. So our coaches are doing a great job as far as driving kids when they have a team of few enough kids that they can get in a van. So coaches are now, most of them are licensed to be able to do that. We've combined routes, but yes, it definitely affects some of those earlier times in the winter. It's bowling that hits us, just because you have to be off the lanes for leagues. Winter, it's really bowling's the one that hit, but in the springtime, it's really everything, getting kids across town. Our athletic department is doing a fantastic job trying to combine things to be as efficient as possible.
Is there any communication that we could let parents know? I mean, not everyone's listening to this meeting, just to like, I don't know, just to give them a heads up, especially as we are entering flu and cold season. I don't know. I just think if I knew as a parent that that could happen, I could probably handle it a little better.
We can work with Dawn to get something out to the community. Like you said, you don't know till it hits you.
No. of
So
course not.
until you get that call of, hey, your child's going to be 15 minutes late, we had to combine a route. You don't feel it till you feel it.
Right. But at
So,
least you're expecting that could be a
mhm.
possibility.
No, I think we can work on something to get something out probably by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good put.
And, specifically golf and bowling parents or spring sports,
Mhm.
like just to give them a heads up that that's going to happen.
Now, how many times have we had to combine routes this school year?
Yesterday and today were the first 2 days.
Okay.
We're still at 40 drivers. We're still borrowing. We were only able to borrow 3 was our issue from other districts. So we lost 1. They had to go back because they're having their own shortages with sickness and time off. Yeah.
Matt, you're doing a fantastic job.
As always.
You look.
Some days it doesn't feel that good. No, thank you.
Is it, maybe this is a question for you, Dawn. Is it possible to do specific all calls by like route?
Yes.
Or are they, so when this happens, you are calling those? Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. I should have known you had it covered, Mr. Luck. Yeah.
Mhm. No, we reach out. It's another layer of the English language barrier as well. So it all kind of starts tying together as these, what'd you call it, a pain point or pressure point. They all kind of meld together and create more pressure.
If they don't understand the language, that would be difficult.
Mhm.
Mr. Spinner, Mr. Lucky, thank you. Next on the agenda are discussion items for the assistant superintendent concerning our educational programs. I believe this is Mrs. Martin and Mr. Freeman.
Yes, so this is just one quick item that we'll ask the board to approve next week at our regular board meeting. This is a resolution that just explains that we do not provide career technical education to every student at King's Junior High. So we do provide opportunity for students to take CTE courses through our Project Lead the Way courses that we have, but it's not a requirement that every student in that building takes one of those classes. So they still have all of their choice options. This has been kind of the case for us for several years. So this isn't anything new. It's just an annual resolution that we ask you to approve, and then I update it with the Ohio Department of Education.
Good. Questions? Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Martin. Next on the agenda are items presented by the board. I think we do have one thing that we would want to add next week, just general discussion is, I've talked to some of my colleagues here and just our reiteration of the confidence we have in our policy regarding the review of curriculum and books. You know, we've all discussed that. So I think that's something we want to discuss perhaps next week, or we can flesh out here if you'd like, just to, reinforce our confidence in the process that we have as a policy. I know we've had a lot of questions in the community concerning that. I mean, I speak personally for myself. I think the process we have in place is efficient, and I think it does the job. I think, Mr. Freeman, what you're doing and with the committees and reviewing the books and the material and the decisions we've made, I think it's a sound process personally, and I know that's just something that we wanted to kind of discuss in the public meeting, and and make sure that people are clear where we stand as a board. That was just my opinion there. I don't want to speak for you all, obviously. But just for next week, I think that's something that we probably should just present to the public and make that clear that, where we stand as a board on that policy and that process. So,
Sounds good.
yeah. We have anything else from you fine folks? Next on the agenda are the legislative updates, Mr. Squirrel.
I'll have an update to give next week.
All right. So may I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I will make that motion.
I will second the motion, Mr. Morrow.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skirrell,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Next week will be a little longer.